just going to try to fish it down in there. And I'll install in reverse because it's easy to see where these go, where it's not so easy to see where the ones down beneath are supposed to go. And I'll put them all in by hand first before I tighten any of them down. That way I'm assured that I won't have any binding or anything as I'm installing them. Now I don't know the torque on these, but I'm just going to do it by feel. I'm just going to say, don't tighten them so stinking tight. They weren't that tight to get them off. You don't need to tighten them so much that, like, they're never going to come off again. That's good. And I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern, just like I was doing like a wheel or something. Okay, there we go. Finished product. It's on there. Just going to spin it to make sure that it's not hitting on anything inside. It's not. Okay, the pulley is just the reverse of removal. And what I'll do is I'll take one of the holes and put them like right up to the top, so that way I can find it. Other than that, you'd be spinning all day looking for it. Okay, once you get one hole lined up, you're usually home free. Sorry I can't get you a better angle on this. It's just not a whole lot of room in here for me, let alone you. There we go. And just like before, I'm just going to run it down snug, but not tight. That way I can hold it in place so I can put the other two fasteners in place. Okay, everybody's snug. Now I'm gonna use my technique that I showed you to break them loose, to tighten them up. Got my long wrench, or my long, this is a screwdriver, not a wrench, Eric. Take my long screwdriver, insert it down in there, where it wedges against the inside. It has to stay wedged in order for this to work. Insert the screwdriver thusly, and it will hold the other two in place while you tighten. These, once again, don't need to be so stinking tight that you can't ever loosen them again. They just need to be tight enough to secure the pulley to the water pump. That's it. That's good. There we go. Once again, spin it and make sure it's good. Everybody's happy. Wedge my alternator back down there. Remember, it was a little tight. Yes, I did just move that engine because I needed to. Now, since I could see this upper one and I know that that's this longer bolt, I'm just going to insert that one first, because situations like this, I like to try to work as many advantages as I can. Life is good. You can see that hole is slightly off. So I'm going to take my pry bar, same one I used when I got it out. I'm just going to try to work over. No, that's too much. But that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm going to try to line that hole up so I can insert the bolt in. Longest bolt. And that went right in. Lastly, I'm going to insert the one in the back. Get that one started, run those down. Now it's time to thread our serpentine belt around. Remember, we have our sticker for reference should we need it. End result is what you see here. Got it routed around the tensioner, crank pulley, back up around the water pump. How about we reinstall that engine mount? I suppose I don't have to tell you to watch your fingers here. I'm just going to take my pry bar, stick it down in here, and give myself the leverage I need to line these up. Yeah, that looks like where I need to be. Make sure you got plenty of threads on these when you run these down. All right, now that those are secure, there's the nuts to reinstall on the engine mount itself to the body of the vehicle. I'm going to bend this back a little bit. Should be fine there. And we'll be pretty much well on our way to having this thing done. That just went back where it wanted to be. How nice. It's convenient. Now I'm going to be real careful when I run this down because this is plastic. But I will run these other ones down with an impact. I think we can take our catch pan out. Take the jack out too. Remember our expansion tank? Well, let's put that guy back in. Sort of pops into place. There it is. And once I've got that clipped in, there's just a matter of the fastener. But first I'm going to install my bracket because the fastener holds this down. It goes in like this. But you know what? Before I do that, move my hose out of the way. I'm going to restore that electrical connection. And I want to do that now. One, so I don't forget. And two, because once all the other stuff's in the way, it's in the way. There's no turning back. Might as well restore this hose connection also while I'm here. since that bracket is supposed to hold it in place anyway. Make sure it bottoms all the way out. There. Now, all I have to worry about is the stuff up top. Take my pliers off, or I should call them vice grips. And because I had those rubber hose ends on there, this hose won't be damaged. I'm not worried about it at all. Holes, everything in that hole's lined up. Don't go too much, this is plastic, this will break over tight. Let's do these hoses next. Cruise control and we're done. Now we just took the cruise control and folded that up out of the way. It's got two studs that it sits on. One that's the 13 on the strut tower, one that's the 15 down here. I'm gonna leave my gun cranked down just like I did for this one, this plastic, because it just needs to hold it down. It doesn't need to kill it. Now for now, I'm gonna top off the expansion tank while it's still jacked up like this. Why? Because right now, this is the highest part of the system. So naturally, any air will work its way up to the expansion tank at this point. So I'm gonna get the expansion tank topped off. I'm still gonna bleed the cooling system, but I'm gonna get this topped off first before I run it out. And as much as I'd love to reuse the old coolant, I actually use that for green coolant also. So there's the possibility that I've contaminated it. So if I reuse the stuff that I've got in the pan, there's a good chance green and orange coolant, like this DexCool stuff, should not be mixed. So if you've got orange in here, leave it as orange. If you want to switch it over to green, which not everybody likes DexCool, you've got to get absolutely all of it out. So you've got to make sure you flush the system out completely before you do something like that. So just to avoid any issues with mixing coolants, I'm just going to start with fresh coolant and a little bit of water. And don't worry that you don't have a bleeder valve, because if you think about it, this hose right here is a bleeder valve, because this is air up here in the top. And as I'm filling the system, the air is coming through this tube and out here. So this works like a bleeder valve. You don't always need a bleeder valve for this. Bleeder valves just make filling the system easier, but the fact that this hose is here is making my life easier as it is. Now I'm going to stop there because it seems a little high, but the level will go down after I start it. I'm just putting the cap on so I don't lose it. I'm not screwing it down tight yet. We can reconnect our negative battery cable now. It's pulled outside so we can bleed the cooling system and check for leaks. I'm going to take my prop rod back and use this one because I'm going to want to sit in here now. The procedure for this is the same as what I've shown in my bleeding a cooling system video. I'll also have to make sure I reset the clock. But you want to take the temperature control, turn it all the way to hot, and in this case I'm actually going to activate one of the modes here because right now it's off. I want to make sure that my valve actually clicks over. So I'll put it on here, actually vent. And then I'll just turn it off. This way I know that all the blend doors and everything are pointed towards hot, because that's the most important thing. You need flow through the heater core, and you need to basically make sure that the heater's all the way on hot in order for that to happen. But everything else we're going to do exactly the same. Now I'm going to rev it up to about 2,000, 2,500 RPM, and hold it there until the cooling fan comes on, or that I'm sure that all the coolant has circulated through the system. Before I start revving it up, I'm just gonna make sure that everything's spinning like it should, and you can see that the coolant level has already gone down. But everything right now looks good. So in case you're wondering where I'm putting my hand, this is the throttle assembly down here, and that's how I'm gonna raise the throttle. Just follow the cables down, and this is where I'm gonna hold it until I see the cooling fan come on. Now some of you may notice from my other video that I actually had a funnel that I installed onto the radiator. But in this case I've got an expansion tank, and because I've got an expansion tank, I'm not gonna use the funnel. The expansion tank is gonna be my funnel. So I don't wanna overfill it, but that's what I'm gonna use to make sure that all the air gets circulated out. That was my bad, I put too much coolant in. Cooling fan's on. We're actually at a good level now. Temp's coming down. All right, allow us to summarize. Now that bleeding took a little bit more than I thought it would, and I had to do the procedure a little bit differently. I don't often do this type of expansion tank system, but it appears what I had to do was top it off, put the cap on, and then if you're wondering what I was doing when I was reaching my hand down in there, I was noticing it was boiling over, and I heard that there was air smacking up against the inside of the radiator, so I could hear the water like causing the radiator to bounce around. So I reached my hand down and grabbed the lower hose and squeezed it shut. And what this does is it forces the fluid as I'm revving it up through the system. So instead of trying to push air, forcing it through a smaller space like that seems to make it so that it starts to circulate again. And as soon as it did start to circulate again, I noticed that the coolant dropped a significant amount and everything was good at that point. So I had to do that a couple of times. Not necessarily the squeezing and holding the lower radiator hose, but actually putting the cap on top of the expansion tank and then running it at about 2,500 RPM. Like I said, the cooling fan came on, temperature was actually about 198, it was below 200 as it was running. I'm happy with that. Was able to top off the coolant one last time, put the cap back on, checked for leaks, didn't find any, so life is good. Another good sign that you've got everything bled out is that you'll have good heat. If you don't have heat, it might not be bled out. And this has good heat. The other day when I finished putting the expansion tank in, I was doing the same procedure, but I noticed that when I put the cap on, that there were drips coming out the bottom. That's how I was able to make the determination that the water pump indeed was leaking. This is the original pump. Some of you may ask how many miles are on this car. It's over 100,000 miles. This was the original GM water pump. So, that's, from what I've seen, that's about how long water pumps last. I mean, usually around 100,000 miles, they recommend replacements anyway. We had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed this little step-by-step on replacing a water pump on a 2002 Chevrolet Cavalier with a 2.2 liter engine with an 8 VIN digit of the number 4. That's important because remember they went to Ecotech right around this time, so that you could find an Ecotech in this, or you could find just the older style 2.2. At least that's what I'm told. I am Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me
at EricTheCarGuy.com, or you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And I'm going to close with be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. Really enjoyed working on this Chevy today. She was fun. See you next time.